In this video, we're going to take a general look at the design space. So this is the main area where you're going to do all of your work when you're designing your insoles. So along the bottom here, we have a lot of the functions that we're going to use to design our insole. And down the right hand side here and at the top, we have our view controls. In the top right hand corner, we have this cube, and this cube allows us, by clicking on features, allows us to navigate around different orientations. So the dot is a isometric view, the line is a partial view between two planes, and then we have here our lateral view, for example, proximal view, etc., etc. So that's what that cube does. If that's too complicated, you can also use this button here that enables certain preset views of the device. But generally, I tend to use the mouse, and most people will use the mouse. At this point, though, I also want to point out that the software is touchscreen enabled, so I'm able to use my fingers, as I am now, to either zoom in, zoom out, etc., but also to select features on my menu. So, for example, here I am now touching these standard views up here on the right-hand side. So this might be useful, the touchscreen, for when you're working with patients on a tablet, a PC tablet. But generally, most people will use the mouse. There's a separate video on how to use the mouse. I won't go into that now. But in this window here, there's some key things that are worth knowing. First of all, that the way in which transparency works is a bit like a clock. Between 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock is solid. Between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock is transparent, and between 6 and 9 is very transparent, and then between 9 and 12 is off. Now that is true of all of the different view controls here. So for example, for our insole, I can switch it to very transparent or off, and likewise with pads, I can also turn them to transparent or turn them off. And finally, for cuts and features, trimming, we can turn that off as well. Okay. Finally, in here we have the image overlay. This is optional. If you've chosen to overlay an image, this is where you're going to turn it on. Once again, very solid color, transparent, very transparent, and off here. So that's very useful, obviously, when you're placing pads. So if we switch our pads back on and our other features back on, you'll see, if I go to semi-transparent here, that we are visualizing the image, or in this case ulceration on our foot, in relation to our relief. So that's how you might use these, a combination of transparent, very transparent, solid, to give you the desired effect. Also, we have the ability to put on rainbow color. So here, if I was to switch my insole off for a minute, and everything else actually, and go into the position tool, this is quite useful for when you're rotating the foot in relation to the plane, so you can get some kind of visualization of how you're going to be offloading and loading that foot in relation to the plane. Likewise, we can do exactly the same thing for the insole. So I can switch the insole on and put that on as well. And here I can actually see then, if I was to play with the arch height, I can see what I'm doing to the contours of my device. Bit of a specialist tool, but useful for some people. Okay, once I've got my design, once I have everything I need, so here I have my pads and I have my relief. Let's say we add a cutout. We can take a heel here, cut out, and place that where I want it. So the next thing I need to know about is, how do I save this model and move on? So if we look along the bottom, the way in which we start our design process is here on the left hand side. We open up what I call a blank canvas. We call it a style file. it has no clinical relevance whatsoever. It is just a 3/4 length device, a full foot device, an EVA device, whatever. And what you might do over time is add lots of attributes like this and then store them. But in adding those attributes, you would use these menus here: positioning, sizing, editing the profile, sorting out the midfoot fit, looking at the arch, the heel, the forefoot, and adding those surface modifications we've just done. But at the end of the process, I need to save this for the patient. So if I was saving my right foot design on its own, I can press this save button here and it's done. Before I do that, if I hadn't done that and I'd gone to the home button, it would have warned me I was about to lose everything, because you have to save it. Now, if you have two different scans, one for the right, one for the left, and you press the copy button, the copy button will take all of these design attributes and replay them over, in this case, the left foot. So if the left foot is dramatically different from the right, it will resize and rescale that design to fit that new foot. But you would still go in there and optimize that for that foot. But really what it's doing is it's taking the prescription that you've designed and replaying that prescription over the other foot. Now, the other option is you may only have one scan for whatever reason. Maybe your phone box is damaged. Hopefully it's because you have a mirrored prescription. Perhaps it's a sports device where they are the same on both sides. If you only have one scan and you design on that scan and then copy, it will take a copy of the scan from, in this case, the right foot over onto the left foot as well. So you get a copy of the design and the scan if you only have one scan. And finally, our last button is the home button, which takes us back out to the front page. So that's the basics of the layout of this main screen. In separate videos, I'll be covering the functions that are available under each of these buttons.